Oh, okay.
We're close.
Well, yeah. Today is April 26, 2023, and I'm Frank Jones. I'll be doing the interview with you. I'm the service chief at Bay Pines VA Hospital, and you, again, are Wayland Strickland. Thank you for volunteering to give us your story today.
My pleasure.
And today we find ourselves at the National Advisory Committee annual conference in Denver, Colorado. So thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Um, let's see here. We're going to ask a few questions. We're going to start out with some biographical details. Tell me about your childhood, such as where you were born, where you grew up, and your early education.
So I'm a Air Force brat. I was actually born at Eglin Air Force Base at the regional hospital there back in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a long line of military. My granddad was Army Air Corps. My dad was Air Force, and so I grew up traveling around, stationed at different Air Force bases, as affectionately known as brats. My education was primarily in Dodge schools, Department of Defense. Um, not too much. My favorite time, mostly was the travel. Um, Most kids, they get stuck in one place. I got to travel around and see different, you know, different environments, different cultures. I grew up. A good chunk of my preteen years was in Turkey. I was
Oh,
stationed over there with my dad back in the mid '80s.
mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah,
Excellent. Thank you. And again, where were you born?
Eglin Air Force Base. That's in the
Eglin. Okay.
Panhandle of Florida.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Early days of service. What motivated you to join the military? Were you drafted or did you enlist?
So I enlisted pretty much delayed entry the day after I turned 18. As I said, most of my family have served in the military in some way, shape, or form, whether drafted in the Army, joining the Air Force, etc. So I just had a drive to serve my country,
Mm,
kind of follow that family tradition. Um, so yeah,
excellent.
it's just one of those just
Mhm.
family commitments, I guess.
And which branch were you in
I was
again?
in the Air Force.
Air
Yeah,
Force.
I joined the
Excellent.
Air Force.
And what was your duties?
My
Your
primary FSC was when I enlisted at 463. They early 90s when they did a lot of the transfers and changed around. I became a 2W2, which is a nuclear weapons technician.
oh,
Yeah.
very interesting. Thank you. Uh, were you involved in any wartime conflicts? Did you serve in um, any of those that you might have served in, and where they might have been? Um, and if not, were there any other opportunities for you to travel while you were in the Air Force?
So my career field was one of those considered non-deployable. So we didn't do combat. We did have bases with NATO partners. So I was actually stationed in Greece during the Yugoslav conflict in a support role. But again, because of the role of my AFSC, we were not deployable. In the early 2000s, we did attempt to special duty assignments when they were looking for special duties for convoy duty, things like that.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, medically, I just wasn't cleared for it.
Okay, absolutely. So you had mentioned um, the support role that you had in Greece.
Yes.
Uh, would you like to speak about that a little bit?
Our primary role was deterrence. Again, this goes back to the Cold War, even though the Cold War technically was over by the late 90s. Our primary role was supporting our NATO partners in a deterrence role against, at the time, would have been the Soviet Union and then Russia.
Hmm.
Um, that was mostly the role there as far as support goes. Is just maintaining that community relations or that strategic alliance with the Greek military.
Excellent. So, you and I both know that one of the great things from serving in the military is all of the funny stories that we have. Do you have any humorous
Oh
or
goodness.
unique events that you'd like to speak about?
I have to think what I can say, just because of the nature of my job.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's true. A lot of guys when they get out, they don't miss the job, they miss the people. And I would say, we had from the barracks parties, the karaoke. Um, those were always fun. Um, oh goodness, we always so when we would do what we call um, PNAF missions, which is where we would basically pull up to a cargo plane to unload or offload items. One of the things that was always fun for us was kind of like a roulette. We'd have our tractor trailer, we'd all sign our names, um, and it's kind of like when you back up to the aircraft, whoever's on the bottom, that was the first round after you were done with the mission. The driver, of course, if he had to pull forward multiple times, he's automatically buying around. So those are kind of just a few of the funny things that we did, just little quirks, kind of motivate us to kind of get the job right. And when you're sitting out there on the flight line, 5, 6 hours at a time, sometimes that kind of breaks up the monotony a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're so right on target with the camaraderie that we miss, esprit de corps. Were you awarded any medals or citations for your service? If so, which ones and how did you earn them?
I wouldn't call them citations per se, but certificates. When we'd have what we call nuclear surety inspections, um, there was a few um, certificates of like outstanding performer, things like that during it. Those meant a lot because we put a lot into those inspections.
Mm-hmm.
Probably my biggest accomplishment and my most prized certificate of appreciation. Um, it was one of the first times in over 50 years that the Department of Defense and Department of Energy collaborated on a new weapon system. And I was part of that, where we basically developed a whole new weapon system, retrofitted uh, one of our older modification weapons into a newer modification. And so that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of as far as receiving, um, because I was part of essentially the first 50 of those units that were put into service.
Mm-hmm.
And working close and collaborating with one of the national laboratories while they were down doing all the work, working with my other service members, my other coworkers. That meant a lot.
Absolutely. So, after your time in service, what occupations did you have? After your service, what are you currently doing?
Actually, when I separated, um, on a whim, I decided to apply at the VA. My wife had applied; she got turned down because she wasn't a veteran, and so I applied on a whim and got the job as a telephone operator. I
Mm-hmm.
was a part-time operator, and then I just slowly worked my way up in the VA. So pretty much I've been with the VA since I separated in 2007, either as a switchboard operator, a medical support assistant doing scheduling, their supervisor scheduling the scheduling process. Um, then I left for a couple years and came back as a PSA for at the time voluntary service, now CDCE. Um, and now I'm the specialist. I was the intern, graduated that program last year as a TCF intern, and now I'm the specialist in Albuquerque.
Absolutely. So, do you have some hobbies that you love to do?
Oh goodness, I do love reading, um, photography. I am a professional photographer also.
Wow.
So one of the things I enjoy is landscape photography and street photography, capturing those moments. They're just a glimpse in history. They're just 1,000th of a second,
Mm-hmm.
glimpse of what somebody's life was like at that moment.
I'm always amazed with the eye that artists have and the beauty that they're able to find in everything. It's beautiful. Um, so, give me an example or share a time that you had that was just an amazing, once in a lifetime opportunity that you have been able to do in your life outside of military.
but it's kind of related to the military. Though. It
Okay,
was my youngest son.
go ahead.
Um, in the military, you have a lot of customs and courtesies, pomp and circumstance. And of course, the Air Force, we have our traditions, and other branches have theirs. Probably my favorite thing I've ever been able to be part of is a Marine Corps ball. We were invited to go to a Marine Corps ball, a couple of them actually last year. And seeing that tradition and kind of correlating it to how the Air Force is, it was something special. It meant a lot.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you a couple questions here. And really, not only is it reflective of your military time, right? But I also see that you have um, some pretty important tattoos on your arm. And I can only imagine, uh, as a veteran myself, that possibly these tattoos may be some of your motivation um, for some of the choices that you've made to work with the VA, to be part of the military and serve our country. Would you like to speak about any of the
Yeah.
memorial tattoos that you have?
So this one is my son.
Can you see that?
And he was a Marine Osprey crew chief. He enlisted in 2020, and he was killed last year in June in an accident in California.
I'm sorry.
He was one of the 5 on Swift 11. Um, he
Go ahead. And feel free to
yeah.
share all your photos.
So he always was proud of my service. He wanted to go Air Force. But the recruiters in the Air Force are a little more laid back, whereas the Marine Corps, I mean, they're good car salesmen. I'm not going to lie. The funny story for him was he answered his phone thinking it was someone local, one of his friends, and it was a Marine Corps recruiter. And he told him, I'm already looking at the Air Force. The recruiter said, well, let's just talk. So I can get you out of the class. Which class do you want out of? And my son hated math. So he liked to joke that he joined the Marine Corps to get out of his math class. He stuck to his guns though, and I was able to teach him a lot as far as, how the recruitment process works, what you want to look for. He really wanted to fly. He wanted to get out and see the world. He didn't want to be stuck in a job where he was just behind a desk all day. And so he stuck to his guns, and I encouraged him to, follow what his heart said. And so he wanted to. I still give him a hard time. It's literally in the name Air Force. We fly. Marine Corps, not so much. But he was able to stick to his guns and become a Marine Corps crew chief for the Osprey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he he was one of those COVID babies. So his high school graduation was truncated by COVID. It was a virtual drive-through, pick up your diploma graduation. When he went to boot camp, he went to San Diego, so he's a Hollywood Marine. He spent 2 weeks in a hotel in quarantine before they started. Boot camp was truncated. There was no family day. There's no visitations because of COVID. He went to A school in Pensacola. Again, COVID. We weren't able to visit for those graduations. The first time we saw him was, the wife had the exact day, I want to say 394 days after he enlisted. We went to New River for his graduation from the mech side of it for the Osprey. And that was actually Veterans Day. It was kind of fun. I took him for his first free meal to Applebee's. And then we went back in April of 22 for his graduation where he earned his wings. And that was the one that was really he was most proud of. He loved earning his EGA, but those wings meant a lot to him. And it was really special because we went there for that. And then I was here last year for the NAC. So immediately after I got done with his graduation, I came here for the NAC. Mm-hmm. And then when I got back home, he was on leave as he's transitioning from New River to Pendleton in California. Um, One of the things that's nice about my son is he loved to fly, and the mood on his face the days he got to fly, I mean, you could just tell. And so, yeah, so the memorial is because less than a month after he got to Pendleton on his first flight, they experienced, we still are waiting the investigation. They experienced some kind of mishap and went down just near El Centro, California, and all five perished.
I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you for sharing. In the Osprey, it's a very unique
It
plane.
is.
Can you explain the plane a little bit to everyone in case they don't know?
I can do my best.
Okay.
It's a tilt rotor aircraft, which means that it lands like a helicopter. It can hover like a helicopter, but in flight, they can transition into cells to where it can fly as an aircraft. It gives the Marine Corps more range and maneuverability and options for their strategic plans.
That's a perfect
Yeah.
explanation. All right, so we're almost done here. Thank you so much for sharing. What are some life lessons you learned from your time in the military that you've been able to use uh, in the latter part of your life?
I'd say the biggest lesson I've learned is take care of your people. No mission, uh, no job is more important than your people, nor can it be accomplished without taking care of your people. It doesn't mean that you coddle them. It doesn't mean that you still have to make the decisions, but your people are the ones that carry out the mission. If you're going to take care of the mission, then your people have to know where their headspace is, where your headspace is, and that you have their back. So for me, I'd say the biggest lesson I've learned that I've carried over from military to civilian is learn who your people are, learn what their strengths are, learn what their goals are, and try to align all those things so that you get your job done and just be a better human towards them.
Absolutely. All right. What do you wish more people in our civilian community knew about veterans or about our military services?
That we're a microcosm of our civilian population. um, we're no different than the individual working at a fast food place. The difference is the training and the commitment we've made.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I always like to joke that you have 18-year-olds working on $1 million pieces of equipment. They're still kids. The difference is the commitment they've made and the mentorship that they're being given. And I think that if the civilian side would look at how we mentor and train our military population, we'd probably do a lot better with our overall society.
Absolutely. What would you like people to take away or to know or to remember about your journey personally?
To know about my journey personally, oh wow. I don't think I've had the most exciting life or career. I've been in some positions, in some places, and seen some pretty cool things. But I think the biggest thing that I think they should take away is don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to live and experience life. Um, you can stay home. You can stay in your comfort zone. But one of the things that's helped me get where I'm at and probably guided my life is the same philosophy. I spoke to my Boy Scout troops and to my kids. Um, Collect experiences, not things.
Excellent. Thank you. And, I can't imagine a better statement for future generations of not only our society, citizens, but also veterans. I love that. And say it one more time: collect
Experiences,
experiences
not things.
and not things. Beautiful. Is there any is there anything that we didn't cover that you would like to say to the audience or get out there to let everyone know?
Cherish memories. One thing I think we, and I'm guilty of it too, when you're out there collecting those experiences, sometimes you lose track of what's important. And so it goes back to, like I said, get to know your people. We're not promised tomorrow. What we're promised is today. And so I would just say, cherish every minute you have with someone. Don't take it for granted, and always try to do better every day.
Thank you. Mr. Strickland, on behalf of the National Advisory Committee and the Department of Veteran Affairs, thank you so much for sharing your journey and sharing a little bit of your son's journey with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.